Okay, hello everyone. It's Mrs. Clymer again, and I'm seeing you again from my basement here, from my fancy recording studio. But I miss seeing you in your classrooms, and I would guess that you might miss your classroom also, even though the first couple days were a little exciting. Like you didn't have to go to school, you got to stay in your pajamas longer, hang out with your family. It almost felt like a treat, even though it was strange. But I don't know about you, that I'm kind of over it. I'm ready to go do the things I like to do. I miss seeing everybody playing at recess. I miss coming to your classrooms. I miss seeing my friends, seeing my family who doesn't live with me. But there is a reason we're staying home. Um, and we stay home to keep ourselves healthy. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. We think of animals, when we talk of livestock, we think of them as a herd, Herd. And a herd is a group of animals, but people are part of a herd too. So, our communities, our neighborhoods, our school, all of those things make up our herd of people, and it's our job to keep each other healthy, okay? And we're doing that by staying home. So today, we're not just going to talk about how we are staying healthy, but we're also going to talk about ways that we keep livestock healthy. So if you remember, hopefully, livestock are those animals who provide us with food. In Iowa, livestock are mostly cattle, pigs, sheep, chickens, some goats. Other animals, like our cats and our dogs and horses, are our companions, if you remember. They're not livestock, they don't provide food. But they also have some of these same things happen in order to keep them healthy. But we're going to focus today on keeping our livestock healthy, because if they're not healthy, we don't have quality food that we're sharing with the world. And you know that that is our farmer's job, is to provide food. So I brought in an expert today, because when we start talking about medical things, those are not necessarily where my expertise is at. So I brought in an expert today. I brought my husband to talk more with us, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Dr. Clymer. I am a food animal veterinarian. The types of animals I see are those livestock species Mrs. Clymer talked to you about. Mostly what I see is cattle, sheep, and goats. But I used to also be kind of a general veterinarian that I saw cats and dogs and horses also, and rabbits and alpacas and llamas and all sorts of different animals.
Wow. What's the most interesting animal you ever treated?
One time I had to treat a sick baby pet turtle.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. That was in Nebraska too. It wasn't that far away. Okay. So we're talking today about herd health, and students are familiar with a herd of livestock. They know that's a group. You work mostly with cattle, so you're probably going to hear him talk a lot about cattle today. But what we keep seeing in the news is the coronavirus. And I'm kind of sick of hearing about it, but I know it's important for us to stay in tune with the news and keep up with what we can do to stay healthy. But when I hear that word virus, I'm not completely sure everyone knows what a virus is. So, Kyle, can you tell us more about a virus?
Absolutely.
Where do we find those?
Viruses are really very, very, very small germs, and they can fly around in the air and live in water and on surfaces, and they can easily be passed from person to person or animal to animal through lots of different ways. And these types of germs can cause some pretty common illnesses that you might have heard of, like the flu, the cold, chickenpox, measles. All those are viruses that affect humans.
Did you have the chicken pox?
I did when I was in
too.
school.
I did. Most of you probably have not, and hopefully will not get the chicken pox, because there is now a vaccine for chicken pox. So, I don't think we're that old. Do you think? We're kind of old. But they didn't have a vaccine for chicken pox. So we had it in elementary. Your parents probably had the chicken pox, and your grandparents, but you probably will not, because fortunately, that's one of the viruses we now have a vaccine for. So we're going to come back and talk about those vaccines. Now, you said these can make us sick.
Yep.
Is that the only thing that makes us sick?
No, there's other things that we call pathogens or germs that can make us sick also. One of the other more common ones that we talk about and can see are bacteria. Bacteria are a little bit bigger than viruses, but they're still really small, single-celled living organisms that also can live in the dirt and water, on doorknobs, countertops, and even on our skin and in our bodies. Some of them are actually really good for us. Not all of them cause sickness or illness. Some of them are really important for keeping us healthy too.
Interesting. We always hear about washing our hands to keep germs away and keeping things clean to get rid of germs. So why would we do that if they're good for you?
Well, some of them do cause sickness.
Okay.
Some of them are actually really important at keeping us healthy. One is called lactobacillus. That's one that we add to yogurt that kind of gives it its tangy taste. That type of bacteria also lives in our intestines, in our stomach, and not in our
GI
GI
tract is
tract.
what we call that.
Yeah. And what that bacteria does is actually keeps us from healthy by preventing other bacteria and viruses from that we might eat from getting into our bodies by through our GI tracts, through our intestines, actually protect us.
So if you eat something bad, not on purpose probably, but if you ate something bad that wasn't safe, that could make you sick, and it still could, but hopefully you have enough good bacteria in your body that it's going to fight off those bad bacteria and keep you healthy. So we know that we get colds, we can get the flu. Those are kind of what we're most familiar with. That keeps us home from school. But what do animals get? Do they have the same sickness as we do?
Some of them are the same. Those are called zoonoses or zoonotic diseases. Those types of illnesses affect both animals and humans. Some that you might have heard of that are like that are called, one is called rabies. You might have, if you played with a lot of little kittens, you might have gotten ringworm. That's a zoonotic disease that affects humans and animals. But that's a type of pathogen, type of germ that we're not going to talk about today called fungus. But there's some that can affect both humans and animals, but there's also some that are very specific to cattle, very specific to pigs, and very specific to humans or cats and dogs.
Okay, so if we want to stay healthy, we wash our hands, we clean our towels, we clean our house, pick up your room, even though that's not always the most fun. Keeping things picked up and clean is one way we stay healthy. We also get vaccines. And those, they're not my favorite. I really don't like needles. You know that.
It's true.
But I know I have to stay healthy. What can we do to keep animals healthy?
So one of the biggest things I do every day is also give animals vaccines. They might come in a bottle like this that we can then use, just like in humans, use needles and syringes to give these vaccines, these shots to animals. And what they do is help boost our immune systems.
Now, I'm going to pause you. Okay, we'll come back to our immune system. You have an empty bottle you've used all of it. You've given all those vaccines.
Yep.
Can you show us, though, how you would fill a syringe?
Sure. So you always want to protect yourself. So I always wear, anytime I'm using gloves or treating animals, I gotta protect myself too. So I make sure I wear gloves. I make sure that also I'm using the bottles clean, that the top of the bottle is been cleaned off, and that I'm using a new clean syringe and needle every time, or making sure it's also really clean. Because sometimes by reusing needles and things like that, you can actually spread more germs from animal to animal. So I got a clean syringe and needle here. I got my gloves on.
It's way bigger than we use for humans.
It is. It's pretty big, and it's always important to be safe when you're handling these sharp instruments. You can see that very well. It's a sharp needle here. So although this bottle is empty, you put the needle into the bottle and pull down the syringe and suck up the amount of vaccine you need. This type of vaccine, most of us don't use this much. We only use about that much per animal. And remember, these are sometimes really big animals, so it's not very much we
Doesn't
give.
take much. Okay, so I stopped you as you were talking about an immune system. So he said if you get a vaccine, it makes your immune system stronger. What's an immune system?
So immune systems are parts of our bodies and animals' bodies that help fight off disease and help prevent us from getting sick. But if we do happen to come in contact with germs like bacteria and viruses, it works to help fight those off. There's lots of different types of cells and ways our body does that to give us our best chance to stay healthy. But sometimes we need a little help, and one way that we can do that is by giving vaccines, and that jumpstarts our immune system, and that in case we ever come in contact with the real virus out in the world, for example, our body already knows what that looks like and is ready to attack and keep us healthy.
So if you get a flu shot like we do, what you're getting is a vaccine that's teaching your body how to fight the flu. Okay, and that doesn't mean you're not going to get it, but hopefully your body has a little bit of a head start and it already knows how to take care of that virus. It's going to fight it a little faster and a little stronger, just like if you take a pretest. That doesn't always go great, but hopefully by the time you've studied and you take the real test, you've had all of that prep to fight through that test to do really well. Okay, and that's what a vaccine is doing for your body. It's like practice to get rid of something.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, so animals get vaccinations. You said you do this almost every day.
I do it a lot.
Okay, so how old does an animal have to be to get a vaccine?
So it depends on the animal and what we want to give the vaccine for. For calves, for young cattle, they might be 2 to 3 months old. They're pretty young when we give them.
We don't want them to get sick. So why couldn't we just do this when they're born?
An important part of immunity, and especially in mammals like humans and cattle and most of the species we talk about, that the first milk they get from their mother is called colostrum. That colostrum is full of antibodies, which are parts of, actually an important part of our immune system that help us target those, build that immune system up, and part of that practice we talked about. If we give vaccines too early, they can interact with those parts that helping to train our immune system. So we don't want them to cancel each other out.
Yeah.
So that's why we maybe wait a little while till those start decreasing, and then it's then a good time to give vaccines to help keep training that immune system.
And that's true for people too. Most of you know that we had a baby last year. He's sleeping. Okay? But he didn't even get his vaccines right away. He didn't have those until he was 2 months old. And now he's had a lot more of them. But that's the same for people. Okay? Your body has to learn on its own a little bit, and then we can start to help it out. So you give vaccines, you wait till they're a little older. We know how you're protecting yourself. What happens if you don't give vaccines? So if you quit giving vaccines to cattle, what are some things you might start to see happen?
One of the biggest things we'll see is a chance of our herds getting sicker more often. One of the most common things that we vaccinate cattle for is what's called bovine respiratory disease.
Hold on. What does bovine mean?
Bovine is the science term, the veterinarian term for cattle.
Okay, and respiratory?
Respiratory system is made up of our lungs, our trachea, our airways, our throat, and our nose.
Okay, so cows, lung system. Okay, this is why I'm not the doctor in this family. Okay, go ahead.
And so that disease is not just one virus or one bacteria that causes that disease. It's a lot of them kind of actually work together to make cattle sick. And so that's the most common thing that we probably vaccinate for in cattle. And when we give those vaccines, what we do is try to prevent the herd from getting sick, right? So if we don't give those vaccines, and say we bring in some new animals to our herd that we went to the sale barn and bought or something like that, if they're sick and we bring them in, they can make the rest of our herd sick pretty quick, and it can spread pretty fast.
Okay, so I know we even have people in our lives who can't get vaccines. Okay, they might be allergic to something in that vaccine, and it's not safe for them to get that. Or people, especially who have had illnesses, what comes to my mind is cancer. People who have had things like that, or who are born with deficiencies or problems with their immune system, they just don't work the way we hope they will, they can't get vaccines. Okay, so does that happen for animals? Kind of.
Kinda. You
Yeah.
know, there's sometimes when we give a vaccine to livestock and they might have an allergic reaction to it, so we know not to give them that vaccine again. Older animals that maybe if they're getting really old, they might not have a good immune system. So what we do is what's called herd immunity. So that's why when we vaccinate our entire herds, that way we can protect those animals that can't get the vaccine for their own protection. If we vaccinate everyone and they're all protected, there's less chance of it spreading around, and that way we can protect those animals that can't get the vaccine or didn't develop a very good immune response to those illnesses.
So that's why you probably got vaccines before you went to school. We call them our kindergarten shots, and you've maybe had others. You get them when you're a baby. You continue getting them as you grow, because if those of us who are healthy protect ourselves, we're actually protecting our classmates and our neighbors and other people in our herd by protecting ourselves. So that kind of is the reason we're staying home. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Okay, hold on. We keep staying home, and that's a good thing to do. That's what you can do to keep yourself and your friends and family healthy. But whenever someone's complaining about this, I keep hearing Kyle on the phone talking to people and saying, well, we do that with animals too. We close the gate.
You bet.
Tell us about that. Why are we closing our gates?
So in a lot of situations where we might have an outbreak of an illness in our herds, what's best to do is keep everyone in place. We don't want to bring any new animals in that could bring new diseases in, or they could get sick themselves from the rest of the animals, and we don't want any animals leaving. So we shut the gate and practice good biosecurity techniques, which I can explain. Is biosecurity is just another term for the way we keep our herds and our animals healthy through washing our hands, wearing gloves, using clean needles, wearing clean overalls and boots, and making sure we're washing them every time and help prevent spreading disease between our own herd and others.
Okay, so if we're staying home right now, that's because we don't have a vaccine for the coronavirus. Scientists around the world are working really hard as we speak, and that's something they're working to do as soon as they can get it. But we have to develop something that's safe for people. We're not going to give people something that is not safe. And so until we have a vaccine, a way to protect ourselves in an extra layer of protection, okay, we can wash our hands right now, but we don't have that vaccine yet. So until scientists can safely create that, the best thing we can do right now is staying home. Okay, so just like our animals get vaccines and they stay in their own pens, they're not moving around, that's what we're doing right now. We're doing all we can to stay healthy. Now, what else do you do for animals to keep them healthy?
So this time of year when it's really rainy and wet and kind of cold, we always make sure they have clean, fresh bedding. So we might put out corn stalks or straw to make sure they have a clean, dry place to lay. We make sure they have clean water, clean, fresh water every day, and also fresh feed to go to. And we might clean their pens a little bit more often, trying to get some of that mud out of there. And
because we know bacteria can live in dirt and water, so
absolutely,
yeah, we have to get it out. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I would like you to do. We do have a drawing. We have not drawn names for prizes yet last week on that soil video. You still have a chance to check it out. Try that yourself. You could win more than once. If you do every single activity, your name might come up more than one time. So I haven't drawn names. I had quite a few of you send me really awesome projects. I'm so proud of all of you. And I'm going to share them with your teachers because they're going to be proud of you also. So I will draw names. But here's what you can do this week if you want to go into that drawing again. We started by talking about viruses and talking about bacteria. Okay? They have some things in common. They live in similar places. They can make you sick, but they don't always. But you heard us talk about some differences. So, what I want you to do is I want you to use a Venn diagram. You saw these when we talked about beef and dairy cattle. Okay? So, if you remember, we use a Venn diagram to contrast, find the differences between two things. So, how are viruses and bacteria different? But if we look in the center, we can compare and talk about how they are both the same. Now, I have this page linked to this video on our website. You can use this page, but if you don't want to print it, that is just fine. You can make this on your own. Okay, you've seen mine made out of hula hoops, but you can just use a piece of scratch paper too. Okay, so I want you to make a Venn diagram and talk about bacteria and viruses. These two pages are also linked on our website, so you can read through those and you can use this information. After you've done that, I want you just to write a sentence. Tell me something you learned from this video. So before I watched this video, I didn't know. Okay, maybe you learned about a virus. Maybe you learned about the word bovine. I don't know, okay? Tell me something you learned. So a Venn diagram, one sentence about what you learned. If you have other questions about this, we will do our best to answer them. I'll bug him and get an answer for you. So you can email me your questions. But I hope that everyone's staying healthy. Do the things you can to keep people around you healthy too, okay? Wash your hands, clean your room, help clean the bathrooms. Chipping in and doing those chores has a purpose. I promise. And we want everybody to stay home and stay healthy, okay? So have fun. Keep your pets healthy. Your pets can't right now, as far as we know. All that research says your pets cannot get coronavirus. So snuggle your pets, help take care of your livestock, and have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.